watching Swipe. Here's what we've got for you this week.
Ad blocking on your phone. It's popular, but is it fair? We speak to the experts to find out. I meet Wikipedia co-founder Jimmy Wales, who tells me how some governments are being naive. And we've got American sports simulators covered with touchdowns and slam dunks aplenty in our games review.
Hello from IP Expo, one of Europe's biggest IT events. The reason we're here is to interview one of tech's most successful entrepreneurs. But before we get to that, we wanted to tell you about a little issue we've been discussing in the Swipe newsroom of late. You know those online adverts that pop up when you're browsing? Well, like them or not, they're actually paying for the content you're looking at. But now a recent move by Apple means that you can install ad blockers on your phone. So the question is, to block or not to block? Here's Stuart.
We all know the situation. You're trying to read or watch something interesting online and it's right there, but you can't see it because of all the adverts. You've been able to block pop-up ads on your desktop computer for a while, but now Apple is allowing developers to publish software that stops them on your phone too.
We wanted to build a tool that enables users to have the choice and choose what happens on their devices, on their browsers. In this case, it is the debate of ad blocking, but in general, we believe that the user should always have control over how they consume the content and how they use their devices.
This kind of software is proving popular. In the UK, around 12 million of us are actively blocking adverts each month. Apple's decision to allow ad blockers only affects mobile web browsers like Safari, so not the apps on your phone. But the change has triggered a debate over paying for content.
We have to help people appreciate that what they receive for free costs money to produce. If you strangulate the ability for people to make money in return for content production, they simply won't make content.
One developer even pulled his chart-topping advert blocking app after just 2 days, saying it just doesn't feel good. He says this is a kind of war with consumers on one side and advertisers on the other.
Adverts have become a problem. They've stopped people being able to read the content. They've stopped people being able to look at the sites that they love. So I think what this is a wake-up call for the industry that we have to change. We have to be a little bit more gentle with the way that we advertise. And we have to make sure that actually we're putting the user first.
Some publishers are being proactive and trying to make changes to advertising that suit their users. Anti-ad block company PageFair helps websites create what are called non-intrusive adverts.
What we need are ads that don't snoop on your data, that don't slow your computer, that don't jump around the screen. We need ads that respect the user and support the publisher. Advertising 2.0 must be better.
The trick will be to reach a compromise that makes everyone happy. Stuart Duggan, Sky News.
You're watching Swipe. Coming up.
Why Wikipedia co-founder Jimmy Wales thinks some governments don't understand technology.
But first, here's a roundup of some of this week's other tech news.
What's been described as the world's first completely wireless phone charger has begun crowdfunding on Indiegogo. Walljacks is apparently compatible with almost any handset that sits on it. The developer's trying to raise money to cover production costs. A group of scientists from Israel have become the first team to sign a contract in the race to land a rover on the moon. If successful, Space IL will be the first privately funded company to reach the moon and win $30 million as part of Google's Lunar X Prize competition. Twitter's launched a new feature that showcases the top things being talked about on the site, regardless of who you follow. Moments has only launched in the US for now and can be found by tapping on a lightning bolt icon. A device that lets you see who's at your front door from anywhere in the world has won £100,000 of funding and a contract to sell in a major department store. People, which uses a smart camera, has won JLab, John Lewis's startup incubator competition.
Now, the big-name speaker who opened this year's expo was none other than Jimmy Wales, the web entrepreneur and the man best known for being co-founder of Wikipedia. He was once named one of the 100 most influential people in the world, so we thought he's a pretty good person to speak to about that ad-blocking debate and a few other things.
So if the ads that people are doing are intrusive and annoying, then it tends to push people to install ad blocking software. But if the ads are relevant and not too annoying and show up at a time when they make sense, then people won't block them. And so I'm not worried about some apocalyptic decline of ad-supported websites because everybody blocks the ads. I just don't think that's likely to happen. I always recommend to people, assume that anything that you put into digital format is vulnerable.
Even if it's a text, a WhatsApp message?
Yeah, I mean, just assume. It's the safest thing to do. It's sort of like, it's excessive, but it's sort of like I have an assumption that if I see a mushroom growing in the wild, it's probably going to kill me if I eat it. Not completely true, but I don't have the expertise to know.
Do you think the government is quite naive when it comes to encryption and security?
I see governments not understanding technology very well, and so they assume there are policy options on the table which don't exist. And you know, to say ban end-to-end encryption is like saying let's ban math, because it's very straightforward mathematics. The software's already out there, freely shared online. You know, you can't ban it. It's just not going to happen. So that's not a policy option. So anybody who proposes that as a policy option, you immediately know, oh, actually, you don't know anything about technology. Like, you have no idea what you're talking about. So
what can the government do? Because they need to be able to spy on potential terrorists.
Well, I mean, there are things they can do. Good old-fashioned police work. It's sort of, the world hasn't changed as much as they would like us to think they have. The bad guys have always managed to talk to each other in private. Go for a walk in Hyde Park and have a private conversation, and that's always been possible and always will be. And as we have different levels of security online, the bad guys will always gravitate to secure technologies, and it just means that just a fact of reality, just as the police can't know what you say in your living room at home to your friend, they can't know what you say just because your friend's across town and you've texted using a secure chat app. So it's overblown. The need for this has been much overblown.
You can watch the rest of my interview with Jimmy Wales on skynews.com and on our apps. But now it's time for our games review. And this week we've gone American sports crazy with an NBA and an NFL game. And if sports titles aren't your thing, we've got one game featuring Han Solo, Iron Man and Mickey Mouse. Yeah, I was surprised too. Here's Steve.
Madden NFL 16 is obviously the latest instalment of EA Sports' American football franchise, and it's one of my favourite games of the year so far. The spectacle of the whole thing is just incredible, in the way that only American sports can do. The commentary, also absolutely pitch perfect, and the gameplay, which of course is the most important thing, is splendid. They actually use sort of quick-time events for the passing. Obviously QTE's quite a bad reputation in gaming, but it's not QTEs in the press X to go to the next cutscene. Actually, the way that you press the buttons, like even whether you tap or hold, and the timing of that when you get these on-screen prompts has a direct impact on the outcome of the game. So it's not boring QTEs, they all have a direct impact on the outcome of the match. Whether you like American football or even sport at all, as a video game, this is still definitely one worth checking out.
In Madden NFL 16.
Disney Infinity 3.0 is the latest instalment, obviously, in the Disney Infinity franchise from Disney and LucasArts, and this time they're really focusing on the Star Wars franchise. Obviously that's very timely, because we've got the movie coming out at the end of the year, and now that Disney have got the rights, they're squeezing every last drop they can out of Star Wars. It's part of this increasing range of titles that we're seeing on the market known as Toys to Life, things like Nintendo's Amiibo, you've got Activision's Skylanders, and most recently Lego Dimensions, where you have to purchase these little figurines to unlock additional content in the game. So, putting all that to one side, the big question obviously is the game any good? And it is, but whether or not you're going to feel you've got value for money probably depends on how much you enjoy collecting those little figurines, but also how much you want to dive into the creative tools that are a big part of the game. Because the story missions themselves aren't actually that long, but the combat, in fairness, very, very good thanks to Ninja Theory's involvement, for the guys who did Enslaved, Devil May Cry, those games. So the gameplay is good, but there's not that much of it in the story missions themselves. Essentially, if your kids love Disney or Star Wars, they're going to love it, but your wallet is probably going to wish that they didn't. NBA 2K16 is the latest instalment in very long-running franchise of basketball games from 2K. It looks absolutely great, and although that doesn't affect the gameplay, which incidentally is great, there's all this lovely detail in the visuals in the game that you don't necessarily get with a lot of other sports games. Sports games can tend to be just generic walls of crowds with 10 different animations somewhere, but in NBA 2K16, you've got like the photographers at one end, and they're all individual people doing their own thing. You've got the front row where people might be having a conversation, talking to their friends, or watching the match. Or every individual person is an individual character, and they're animated. And no, that doesn't make the game more fun, but it creates such a rich world. It's so much more satisfying and immersive to feel that you're in a genuine environment, and that's quite unusual. This doesn't really have that many tutorials, so if you're not familiar with the game, it could be quite hard to get into, but still another great game in a very successful long series.
That's it for this week. Take a look at Sky News on mobile and iPad for some more tech news. I'll be back next week. Bye-bye.